Hey everybody, welcome to our second unit in English 1102. This unit spans from July 9th until your second essay is due on July 22nd. So you'll see it's these next 2 weeks. And I want to go over briefly some of the things that we'll be covering during this second unit, which focuses on analysis. So this week in your textbook, Writing in Transit, you'll be reading chapters 6, 7, and 8 and completing a reading quiz on those. And you'll also be completing 2 writing assignments. The first one is an annotated bibliography, and the second one is the essay. So let's take a quick look at what the 2 of those are. So the annotated bibliography is the first that's due this July 15th. And what it does is an annotated bibliography takes a closer look at the sources you use for your research paper. And so you will be required to include 4 sources on your annotated bibliography. We'll talk a little bit more about what that exactly means. Even though you're only required to use 3 sources for your final essay, you'll be looking at 4 for this. MLA or APA formatting. Okay, so what is an annotated bibliography? So if we break that down, annotation means to create notes about something. And so we annotate texts when we read them, we annotate articles, we add our notes to it. And so your annotation for this assignment is going to do 3 things, okay? It's going to summarize the article, it's going to assess if this article is going to be a useful source for your work. Is it a good source? Okay, and then it's going to reflect about how does this article fit into the work that you're doing. And so all of those questions are really listed right here. So your annotation includes 3 parts: a summary, an assessment, and a reflection. Okay, so minimum 3 sentences, probably closer to 5 to 7 sentences on each source. All right, okay, and then the bibliography component is this section where you include the bibliographic information of the source itself, which is author, title, source it came from, city, publication, or publisher, date, pages, things like that. Okay, so here's an example of an annotated bibliography. This is just one entry from some work that I've done in the past. So here is my bibliography component, which is the listing of the information. And here's my paragraph that summarizes, assesses, and reflects on that source. So that's what one looks like. Okay, why do we do an annotated bibliography? Well, it helps us learn a little bit more about our topic. Now, you already did Essay 1, which summarizes the history and the definitions and the background, but now we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the arguments themselves. And so you'll be able to start to learn about that argument through this process. It helps us eliminate sources that will not be useful. And so if you include a source on your annotated bibliography, it does not necessarily mean you've used it in your final essay. So one thing from personal experience, I've gone to the library, I've checked out a stack of books, I've gone home, and I thought, oh, these books are perfect. They all look so great. The information, the summary about them sounded great. And then I started actually going through them and realized that only a few of those books were actually going to be helpful for my research project and my argument. And so by doing the annotated bibliography, we figure that out much earlier in the process than waiting until we're drafting and thinking, oh, I thought I had a stack of good sources, and now I realize that only a few of them are actually usable. And so if we figure that out earlier, then we can go back to our research process, find the sources that are going to be useful. And then lastly, it also, as we dig into it, into our sources, it will help us formulate a thesis or a claim for our argument. So I have found annotated bibliographies to be a very worthwhile process. They're also very time consuming. So make sure that even though you're only doing this for 4 sources, that you do allot some time to get this done and do it well. All right, so that's what's due on July 15th. It's going to be specifically looking at the sources we are using, all right, from your first paper and moving into your argument. The second assignment is the Essay 2 assignment. So let's open that up. So for essay 1, as I mentioned already, you took a topic that was debatable and you looked at the history, the background, the definitions. You started to set the context for a future argument. You started to learn what are the conversations out there. Now it's really important that we analyze those conversations. And you'll read chapter 7, which is all about analysis in our textbook. And so analysis, by coming with this critical eye to analyze the arguments or the conversations that currently exist on our topic, means looking at both sides and thinking, how are they creating the argument that they're creating? What are they using? What strategies? What logical fallacies may they be presenting? And so this will help us think about our sources and the arguments more critically, with a critical lens, so that we're not just kind of taking everything in, here's what matches my belief system, here's what matches my claim that I already know in my brain because I've been thinking about this or I care about this topic. And now I actually have to go in and decide and look at how these people are actually crafting their argument. And so it helps us create a deeper understanding of the arguments on both sides. Okay, because a lot of times students are very quick to find all of the stuff, all of the research and sources that support the side that they've already really thought about and they agree with, and then we just throw in some other sources for a counter argument. Okay, so for this essay, you will be analyzing both sides with a critical lens. You will not be arguing either side. Okay, that's a really important point. You are not arguing either side. You're analyzing the current conversations, the strategies that they use, and perhaps the logical fallacies they present. Okay, so to develop your analysis, you'll use concepts from chapter 8, which is about framing an argument. You'll be perhaps looking at their persuasive appeals. Okay, here's the list of things you may be looking at. The ethos, pathos, or logos, the timeliness of the argument. The connection that argument is to the greater conversation and how it's linked to other works. Are your sources citing other research? And then especially the logical fallacies. Okay, are they opposing a straw man? Is there non sequitur? Broad, hasty generalizations. Okay, so you're going to be looking for that on both sides, and this makes you think about the argument at a much deeper level, so that when you finally do go to argue it yourself, which is essay 3, you'll already have dug in and you'll know these arguments and conversations so much better than if you just read them and then kind of regurgitate them into an essay to support your side. Okay, so again, you're not writing the argument, you're analyzing the existing arguments on both sides. What strategies and what fallacies are they presenting? All right, and so on the second page here, I've got a sample outline to think about how you will frame this analysis essay. Please reach out with any questions. This essay can be a lot more challenging for students. It's click, click. You've got to think about your sources in a new way, not in the way that how are you going to use them for support or to argue against, but literally coming kind of from a outside external perspective and thinking, how are these arguments, how are these conversations being framed? What strategies are they using? So again, I'm here to help you succeed. So reach out with any questions. If you want to write one practice paragraph and shoot it my way for feedback, I'm happy to work with you that way as well. So I look forward to reading your annotated bibliographies and working with your drafts. And I'll see you online.